Our Creator endowed us with the right to life, and yet millions of children lose their right to life every year because of abortion. In Texas, we work to save those lives. And that's exactly what the Texas legislature did this session. They worked together on a bipartisan basis to pass a bill that I'm about to sign that ensures that the life of every unborn child who has a heartbeat will be saved from the ravages of abortion. I want to thank the entire legislature, both Republicans and Democrats, for stepping up to stand for life. And I want to thank the lead authors of this, Senator Brian Hughes, Representative Slauson. Thank you so much for your leadership. And also want to thank all of the pro-life groups who joined with us here today, but also who worked tirelessly during the course of the session to make sure this bill got passed, for everything they do to cultivate a culture of life in Texas. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker also for their leadership in this effort. Now, we're about to make it law. I want to thank everybody for gathering with us here today. You know, we gathered today at what truly is considered to be the cradle of liberty in the Lone Star State. Yeah. We're on hallowed ground where men and women, they put their lives on the line and they lost their lives for the ultimate cause of freedom, for what turned out to be the Lone Star State, the greatest state in the United States. They fought for freedom. They fought for liberty. And that included the freedom to be able to carry a weapon. And they knew the reason why somebody needed to carry a weapon was far more than just to use it to kill game that they would eat. They knew as much as anybody the necessity of being able to carry a weapon for the purpose of defending yourself against attacks by others. That very same principle exists today. Just look at the ranchers who live in South Texas who are being invaded on a daily basis by people coming across the border. They need to have a gun to be able to defend themselves against cartels and gangs and other very dangerous people. There is a need for people to have a weapon to defend themselves in the Lone Star State. And when you consider that, you can understand why we are pushing back against this narrative across America, where people are saying, from the federal level to the local level, that Second Amendment rights are under assault, that government officials are saying, heck yes, government is coming to take your guns. Texas will not let that happen. Now, in Texas, this past legislative session, we made Texas even better by balancing a budget with no new taxes, adding to our savings account, cutting regulations on businesses, and passing COVID liability protections for businesses. We also spurred our economy when we opened Texas 100% with no masks, even though it did cause President Biden to call me a Neanderthal. Well, Texas saw so much economic growth during the pandemic, we even climbed in international economic rankings. Before the pandemic, if Texas were its own country, we would have had the 10th largest economy in the entire world. Now we elevated to having the 9th largest economy in the entire world. This is due in large part because we practice what ALEC teaches every day. We remain committed to free markets and fiscal responsibility in the power of American ingenuity. Again, I want to thank ALEC and your members
for your continued leadership to keep America the home of freedom and opportunity. May God bless you all, and may God forever bless the United States. Whether it's tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year, we will be addressing the items that are currently on the call, which include not just additional money for foster care, but also include money for our retired teachers who desperately need that money at this particular time, as well as property tax reductions. I know for a fact that property taxes are going up in San Antonio and that your viewers want to see relief. We want to deliver that relief, but we cannot do it because your representatives, not just Minarez, but representatives like Cortez and Lopez, they are missing in action right now, and we cannot reduce your property taxes until they return to Texas and do their job.
He's a great friend of mine. When I was governor, he was president. Anytime I called upon the president, he was there to step up and help our fellow Texans. And one of the things that he did better than anything else, and definitely better than any other president, is he stepped up and he secured our border and kept Texans and Americans safe. Things have changed so quickly and so dramatically under the Biden administration. It has been amazing and disastrous. For one, if you just look at the year-over-year numbers, look at this May versus last May. The increase of people coming across the border who've been apprehended has gone up more than 800% in just that May over May, and in April it was the exact same thing. We see something that needs to put in context, because you hear Vice President Harris talk about going down to the Northern Triangle as if solving the problem in those three countries is going to solve the problem with regard to the border. She is misleading America. Because the fact of the matter is, there are people coming into the United States across our border from more than 150 countries across the entire globe. If she solves the problem in those three countries, which we know she can't, it means there's still more than 147 other countries to go to solve problems there. They're missing the point. There's one place to solve all the problems on the border, and that is on the border. And that's exactly where the Biden administration needs to devote their resources to get the job done. The problems are dramatic. Let me give you just one example about what's happened after you left presidency that we've seen in Texas and across the nation. It's probably the most deadly aspect of what is happening, and that is the importation of the deadly drug of fentanyl. Just 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a deadly dose. And just this calendar year, the Texas Department of Public Safety has seen a 2,000% increase in the amount of fentanyl that they have apprehended, and that's not counting what Border Patrol has apprehended. Just the Texas Department of Public Safety alone has apprehended more fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire state of Texas. This is deadly, it's dangerous, and it's infesting regions across Texas as well as regions across the United States. So here's what Texas has done that I'm going to bring you up to speed on that we have had to do to respond to this crisis. We launched Operation Lone Star, where we deployed 1,000 Texas Department of Public Safety officers as well as Texas National Guard, and they have already arrested almost 1,800 people for criminal violations, in addition to about 40,000 apprehensions of people who've come across the border illegally, and they have busted 41 stash houses. In addition to that, things got so bad that county judges, the lead officials in the border region counties, for the first time ever, they asked me to declare disaster. You remember I declared disaster for Hurricane Harvey and some other things like that? This is the first time ever I'm aware of that a governor had to make a disaster declaration for the border situation, and yet that's exactly what we did. And then the state of Texas, with the help of Lieutenant Governor Patrick, we passed in our state budget that I just signed more than $1 billion of funding for Texas to have to step up and secure our border. And then after that, they added an additional $250 million for Texas to begin building our own border wall to keep Texas safe. And then on top of that, listen, one thing that we talked about, we've been in meetings all day, and one thing we know, and that is a border crisis is plaguing the farmers, the ranchers, the residents of the entire border region. Fences are being mowed down. You have livestock and crops that are being destroyed. You have homes that are being invaded in neighborhoods that simply are not as safe as they used to be. Law enforcement. Your law enforcement officers, they're having to redirect their resources to deal with the border as opposed to deal with what they normally deal with, which is keeping your community safe every day. County judges and mayors. County judges and mayors are facing skyrocketing expenses because of the border crisis. Change is needed to fix the border crisis problem. These challenges that we're talking about are a direct result of the open border policies in place right now. And you look at the numbers to see it. If you compare last April to this April, you see that last April there were about 17,000 people who were apprehended. This April, more than 170,000. That's a 1,000% increase. The same applies for May. In May of last year, there were about 23,000 people apprehended. This May, more than 180,000. It is out of control, and a change is needed. One of the reasons for this massive increase of the number of people coming across the border is because the Remain in Mexico policy that was working has now been eliminated, and now people are more easily allowed to come across the border. Another thing is that there's a difference in commitment. There used to be a commitment to say we are going to secure our border. Now the commitment is anybody who wants to come in is going to be allowed to come in. A change is needed. Cartels, drug smugglers, and human traffickers, they're profiting off of all of this. They're making money by smuggling people in from countries you haven't even heard of before. It comes from 160 different countries across the entire globe. Senegal, Bangladesh, Uzbekistan, and fentanyl. Fentanyl is invading your communities. The chief of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Steve McCraw, just to my right, he told me that during the first 4 months of this year, they experienced an 800% increase in the amount of fentanyl they apprehended in Texas. And that's just DPS, not counting your local law enforcement or federal law enforcement. He said that just DPS alone, just in the first 4 months of this year alone, they have apprehended enough fentanyl that could kill 21 million people. We cannot let that happen in Texas. So let me tell you what we have been doing, and let me tell you what we are going to do. Our initial response to all of this, our initial response to the new administration's open border policies was to create what's called Open Lone Star. It's an effort that combines the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas National Guard, where I deployed more than 1,000 Texas Department of Public Safety officers, as well as National Guard, to our border to begin the apprehension and arrest process of people coming across the border. The Texas Department of Public Safety, they've arrested more than 1,500 people, and together they have apprehended more than 35,000 people who've come across our border. But what we've done already is more than any state ever in the United States. But one thing we realize is that far more is needed. And it's needed for very simple reasons. We need to recognize that the numbers of people coming across the border are just going to continue to increase unless we change the game plan. The location where they're coming across the border has already changed, and those who live here in Val Verde County have seen that. It used to be highly focused in the Rio Grande Valley region. Now we see a massive increase in the number of people coming across the border where we are right now, which is in Val Verde County. And the people coming across, especially in Val Verde County, are changing also. It's not so much the unaccompanied minors. You have very dangerous people who are involved in human trafficking, drug trafficking, people that if you encounter, you don't know if you're going to walk away safely from. You should not have to face that danger in your community. A change is needed. So tonight I am announcing additional action that we are taking to secure the border and to restore order here in the border region. First is what we're doing right now, this emergency called Border Security Summit that brings together local officials and residents to talk about immediate solutions, not something we're going to do next year, not something that will begin next month, but something that will begin immediately. Second, I am right now invoking Article 4 of the Texas Constitution to form the Governor's Task Force on Border and Homeland Security. It will help all of us to work on ways to stem the flow of unlawful immigration and to stem the flow of illegal contraband. In this task force that I'm going to be signing right now, it includes the following members: the Office of the Governor, the Office of the Attorney General of Texas, the Texas Department of Public Safety, the Texas Division of Emergency Management, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. And they will meet every 2 weeks with the Texas Border Sheriff's Coalition, county judges, mayors, property rights organizations, concerned citizens, and prosecutors in border communities, and we will work these every 2 weeks to make sure that we are coming up with every solution to make your border safer. So I'm going to sign this Governor's Task Force right now. Today, the Governor's Task Force to better secure the border begins. Third, see these documents right here? This is just one part of the budget that the Texas legislature passed this last session. Included in the part of the budget I'm holding up is an allocation of more than $1 billion by the state legislature for border security in Texas. And I'm hereby approving this $1 billion allocation to border security in Texas tonight. This will add more boots on the ground. It's going to add more aircraft and drones in the air, more boats in the water. It's going to provide the resources that you need to begin to step up and more meaningfully address the border challenges that you face. Fourth, I have already issued a gubernatorial disaster declaration for 34 counties that requested assistance because of the border security. So this is the first time I've seen a gubernatorial disaster declaration made for such a cause. Typically it's for things like hurricanes. This, however, is a disaster that we're dealing with on the border, and it deserves a governor's disaster declaration to provide you the resources and the help you need immediately. Fifth, next week I will be issuing a new disaster declaration, creating an enhanced border security plan. This plan includes an intensified focus to make sure that we make it even more difficult for people to come into the state illegally, and to make sure there are consequences for people who come into the state illegally. What this will do, it will focus on making arrests. The Department of Public Safety will work with local officials to arrest anyone who enters our state illegally and is found trespassing, engaged in vandalism, criminal mischief, or smuggling. We will be arresting a lot more people in the future. So more jail space will be required. So we're working with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards and TCOL that will work with counties to expand jail space. But this can only happen when local communities participate. We need
local officials like the ones I've spoken to today, your sheriffs, your mayors, your county judges, your county attorneys, your district attorneys. This is a team effort because we don't want just to arrest somebody to have them released. We want to arrest somebody to have them prosecuted, to be put in jail, to stay in jail, to create an environment where people will choose they don't want to come across the border in the state of Texas anymore because it's not what they were expecting. It's not the red carpet that the federal administration rolled out to them. They are going to jail in the state of Texas. Sixth, the ability to arrest will be enhanced by building border barriers. Some of these border barriers will be built immediately. Whenever anybody tries to modify, attempt, or get through any of these border barriers, that in itself is a crime for which they can be arrested. But on top of that, I will announce next week the plan for the state of Texas to begin building the border wall in the state of Texas. Seventh, one thing I think we can all agree on, the border crisis is bigger than the state of Texas. It affects the entire country. The spread of deadly fentanyl is just one example. We need other states in the United States of America to join our effort. So tonight, at this moment, Arizona Governor Ducey and I are invoking an interstate compact power that empowers states to help one another in times of disaster and emergency. We're calling on other states to send reinforcements. Our greatest need is for law enforcement officers, equipment like drones and helicopters, and jailers. Right here is the interstate compact that I'm going to be signing. States across America, come to Texas, help us solve this border crisis. Eighth, landowners need relief too. It is wrong that they are left to foot the bill for damages caused to their property by people who are here illegally. The federal government should pay for those damages. The task force that I talked about earlier, the governor's task force about the border, will work with landowners to seek recovery from the federal government for the damages that were caused by the federal government. In closing, let me just add this. Contrary to the way some people have acted, the border crisis is no laughing matter. This is something that also is not a tourism site for members of Congress to make an annual pilgrimage to and see the border and then go back and do absolutely nothing at the federal government level to solve the crisis. Long term, only Congress and the President can fix our broken border. But in the meantime, Texas is going to do everything possible, including beginning to make arrests to keep our community safe, to keep the cartels and smugglers out, and to keep your community safe. We are going to do everything we can to secure the border, and it begins immediately today right here in Val Verde County.